Prince William, is not popular within palace walls. This may come as a shock to many people, but clearly, this is the future. This is going to be exactly how Prince William apparently sees the monarchy moving forward. But will it be to everybody's delight? And more importantly, when I tell you about the inside track of what's going on behind palace walls, well, you'll have to form your own opinion. But it's always good to share, right? Morning, good to see you, chums. Thank you so much for joining me today as ever, and welcome one and all brand new subscribers. Thank you, by the way. I've found this poppy. As I found, I bought it, but I like it, and for obvious reasons. Huge supporter of all the veterans. We owe them so much. I'm sure many of you, like me, when you see this sort of video online of those young, brave men and women all marching, particularly in the First World War, I find that very evocative because, cameras are new, right? So they're not quite sure what they're looking at. And there they are smiling away. And you think you've got no idea what you're going to. You're going there bare and you're doing it all really for us. And this is why we should always remember them and always be grateful, because many, as many know, just didn't come back, including during the Second World War. And everybody felt, didn't they, that this was going to be it. This was the finality. We would never have problems like this. It's so tragic that so many lost their lives. And when people say, oh, and these people on TV, I don't wear a poppy because I'm against. Never mind that. How about the respect for the people that gave you the freedom to be able to say that? Whether you agree with the war side of things or not, it's the personal people that did so much, the brave men and women over those two world wars. Incredible stuff, really. So yes, sorry, that's my rant. I hope you don't mind. We will get back, of course, to your royal story of the day. Prince William, as you can imagine, is not popular right now. What I can tell you, though, is really this, because it's fascinating, as we now know. He's over in Rio with his Earthshot Prize. And as I've said, it's kind of one of those things to me. It's very nice, it's very noble, all of that sort of stuff. But there are things closer to home that I believe really should just have that full attention. But you should be allowed your passions, your moves, whatever you want to call it, right? This is clearly what really engineers and drives Prince William. And we've seen this, sorry, we haven't done a wave, but we've seen this alongside his eldest son, Prince George, who, like many of the children, in fact, Louis and Charlotte, are fascinated by nature and the things around them. Very nice to know, obviously. But you see, what's interesting over here right now, as you can imagine, the problem that you've got living on the Windsor estate is this. Everybody thinks it's very cut and dried with the former royal known as Prince Andrew, now simply Andrew Windsor. And as he's coming to terms with exactly what he's lost, and it must be, you've got to think about this on a mental level, suddenly, your things, and as I pointed out the other day, William's not for the stripping of the titles, the medals and the honorary things that he got through bravery and stepping up for his country. And I agree on that, whether you like that or not. I think, no, that's a separate issue. What he did on a personal level is totally his problem, right? We all know that. What many don't know, though, is this sort of vacating of Royal Lodge won't be as quick and as swift as people think. It could either go two ways at the moment, right? Because it's going to take a long time to dismantle 30 years of, work and household stuff, splitting things, who gets what, who keeps what, etc. Now, according to an excellent source, this could either be in the new year, because if you look at that statement from His Majesty the King, it sort of says, in the fullness of time. They don't speed things up inside the monarchy, right? They don't do that. And so consequently, what you're going to find is, well, Prince William, I think, would have liked the removal van there the day after. What many people are finding is that that's simply not going to be the case. Now, there's two good reasons for this. You see, the bottom line is the royals obviously may now pop up to Sandringham for Christmas. So would it be better for, of course, Prince Andrew to remain inside Royal Lodge at Windsor, perhaps alone, I don't mean that unkindly, but away from all the senior royals? Because if he's on the Sandringham estate, that's going to be the focal point again. Will he do this? Will he say that? And also what's going to be interesting is, will His Majesty the King allude to the difficult family year that he's had in his now famous Christmas speech? I think he's going to have to, in one way or another, get that in, right? What many people don't realise, though, is that Andrew is on sort of in a seclusion zone. And this is because, as he's in Windsor, And this is fascinating, and this is just how low and how level that relationship has dropped. As you know, he's not, we've seen it before, right, chums? You see him, horse riding, walking, driving the car, all of that sort of stuff. Well, in order to do that in the future, in this remaining period that he is at Royal Lodge, what he's going to have to do is first find out exactly the movements of the Prince and Princess of Wales. Again, I have to say, allegedly. And this is really a practical reason, right? Simply because he then cannot be spotted or pap snapped or indeed seen roaming the Windsor estate, because William, Catherine, and of course looking after their 3 children is paramount. But they know that that paparazzi shot of, even in the same vicinity, just 2 cars going down the drive at the same time, will be worth thousands, if not millions of pounds, simply because they're not looking, they're not registering it each other. You understand that side of the story. Now, that's going to be interesting, as I say, because that must be a real kick in the teeth for, of course, the former royal known as Prince Andrew. Suddenly now he has to find out if he's allowed to go outside his own house at the same time as the Prince and Princess. What's also interesting, what many people don't know, is behind the scenes that William is now engineering. We do know that His Majesty the King will never abdicate. It's not in his, background or whatever. He doesn't want to do that. William doesn't want that for him also. But what William is trying to engineer behind the scenes through excellent sources in courtiers is simply this, is the downgrading of the monarchy, in the sense of the costumes, the regalia, the Order of the Garter. William loathes the sort of dressing up side of royalty. And he doesn't like that. We've seen Catherine sort of smiling in a nice jokey way about what he's wearing with the plumage and the hats. He finds that embarrassing. Now, that would have been all right, for instance, right, chums, if that was in his 20s and early, teens and stuff. But the fact that he's in his 40s and he still doesn't like it, doesn't necessarily want all the regalia and the medals, he feels that the royal family should be far more accessible, right? And this is the battle that's going on behind the scenes with himself and His Majesty the King. You see, the King realises, like Queen Elizabeth, that ultimately this is a show. It's a spectacle, it's a wonderful display of military circumstance and pomp and all that sort of stuff. So the gold carriages, the processions, say, to the trooping of the colour, William wants all of that looking at in a more modernised way. And in fact, as we know already, he's not too fussed whether you bow or indeed curtsy to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Now, I would say that this is going to be problematic for Prince William. And this is simply because it's what real royalists like. You see, if you just wanted an ordinary Joe to rock up in navy chinos and a jacket with no tie, well, you can get that anywhere, right? There's no reason for that. The Queen very astutely knew that the public wanted this big showmanship, this situation. William, according to this excellent source, has spoken to the King at length and said, look, this doesn't sit well with the austere life that people are living, and indeed the hard times that people are going through. It's a tricky thing, isn't it? Because people have gone through hard times forever, and it's not really about that. It's about, does it bring you joy? Does it bring you inspiration? Is it nice? Is it representative of your country? And that is the fight back. That is also the bigger problem. What's also interesting to know as well is, while Harry was over here recently, and for the final meeting with his father, His Majesty the King, William simply didn't want to know at all, because, and this is another excellent piece of information that you will not have heard anywhere else, but simply because Harry and Meghan have never told the truth about the bamboozlement of the using of the name Lilibet of the late Queen Elizabeth. She was incandescent with annoyance, rage, whatever you want to call it, from the team. And as I've told you on numerous occasions here on our show, the farce that, she was thrilled with it and they'd had this conversation. Meghan truly let it all out a couple of years back, I think when she was being interviewed by somebody, when she said, when you've decided your names, tell no one. contradictory in terms time and time again. So the problem that William has is, if they'd have just come out and said, you know, we thought this would be a nice tribute, maybe we should have placed it in a better way, but they put Her Majesty in a very difficult position because they knew that she couldn't come out and hit back. And consequently, if you remember, Harry threatened to sue the BBC at the time, and that brought a whole heap of problems for the palace once again. And that is just simply one of the reasons, according to the source, why, you know, William simply just can't abide it. He doesn't want to know, can't abide either one of them because they're not being honest. And again, this is the thing, isn't it? I think this is why Meghan has got this, you know, your authentic self, my truth. You know, this really annoys William because ultimately she says it knowing she's never been truthful about anything about her stint inside royal life. Now, Harry is wishy-washy about this. You know, clearly he knows the truth, but he's not going to go against his wife because he lives in fear of her decisions and her movement. And then on top of all of that, quite frankly, Prince Harry, he's seething still with jealousy about the success of his elder brother, something that was given to him by birth, and there's nothing William could do. But this does not stop Prince Harry niggling away at every chip and corner. Meanwhile, watching everything that's going on in Rio over in Montecito. Right, staff members? So there you are for today's latest update, what's going on inside the House of Windsor. As ever, chums, if you can, please like, share, and you know that new one, hype. If you can, I know we're always good to learn something on this show, isn't it? I'll see you next time. Neil Sean, Kensington, London.